Okay, we are on topical review worksheet on cells. So we're going to go through the questions together online. Now the first question says this: you have a plant cell under a microscope and you're able to know that it is a plant cell because nucleus, not true because you can see that in animals as well. Cell wall, possible. Cytoplasm, no. Cell membrane, you can also find it in both animals and plants. So the answer is 2. Now let's go on to the next one. Which part of a cell contains information that determines the characteristics of a human? Just some fun facts. We talk about information, we are actually talking about DNA. So if you could remember the video where we talk about chromosomes and that's inside the nucleus, these are all where all the informations are actually being found. It's like a brain like that. So the only answer that's acceptable will be nucleus. Okay. Now question 3, which part of a plant cell contains a green pigment? Now the moment I see the word green, I will associate the green with this thing called making food or photosynthesis. And it is also the one that converts your sunlight into food. It cannot be the jelly. Okay, it can't be the one that gives a shape. It can't be the one that's like a door that controls movement in and out. So the only answer will be chloroplast. Question number 4. Now, we will learn more about sperm cells in our reproductive systems. Now, for now, focus on this part here of the cell. Okay, there's genetic information from a father that's passed on to the child. Which part of the sperm cell stores the information? Now, again, this is similar to the earlier questions where we talk about DNA. And that's where it's found in your chromosome and in your nucleus, the brain of the whole cell. So the answers here will be nucleus as the answer. Nucleus, the brain. If you recall, we talk about it being the brain. Alright, now next. Question 5. Which one of the following descriptions of a typical plant and animal is not correct? Now, under examination stress, you might end up looking at the word correct and you look for an answer that is correct. So what I will do as making a short note, I will tell myself that, hey, I'm actually looking for information that's false. Okay, I don't want to be distracted by this word correct. False. So we take a look. Over here, we see the plant cell has nuclei. Nuclei is a singular form of nucleus. Nuclei also, that's actually quite a true statement. We don't want to take that as answer. Plant cell has a cell wall. Animal cell has no cell wall. This is also quite true, so we don't want that. Now, plant cell has cytoplasm. Animal cell also has cytoplasm. This is true. Now let's take a look at the last one. Plant cell does not have a regular shape, alright, or we take it as rectangular shape. Whereas animal cell has a regular shape. In fact, it is the opposite, right? So this statement must be false. So the answer must be number 4. Let's go on. Question number 7. 2 cells. You have got an animal cell and something that looks like a plant. So if you don't know what is an elodia, alright, looking at the shape, you know that it is a plant. Whereas circular, this should be an animal cell. Okay, let's take a look at the statement. We want to see which are true. Chick cell has a cell membrane. Elodia doesn't have. Plant cells, they have a cell wall. They also have a cell membrane. Alright, every house will have a door. Cell membrane is the door. Chick cell and elodia both have a nucleus. This is true. Alright, no matter what kind of cells you are, you have a brain over there. Chick cell and elodia cells cannot make food. Is it true that chick cell cannot make food? Yeah. Not true, For animal cells, chick cells, animals, chick, we are animals, we have our chicks. We cannot make food, yes. But for elodia, which is a plant cell, they are able to make food. So this is actually false. Elodia cell has cell wall, but chick cell doesn't. So the animal cell doesn't have, whereas the plant cell has. So the answer must be true as well. So we looked at the two possible answers. They are B and D. The answers will be 3. Let's go on. Now, which part of the following cell is correctly matched? Again, I want to look at this keyword, correctly. Cytoplasm is a jelly. And is a jelly the one that controls? Not true. Because when we talk about control, we are talking about the nucleus. Now, a cell wall is the one that traps sunlight. Is that also true? Not true. Because for sunlight, it is one part of the cell that takes charge of it is the chloroplast. Chloroplast allows substance to move in, around, and within the cell. When I see the word move, moving in and out, no, because this is the job of a cell membrane. Okay, cell membrane surrounds the cell parts and keeps it in place. Alright, yes, it surrounds, and it also makes sure that it doesn't go into other kinds of places. That's true as well. Now, looking at both, all the answers seems to be cell membrane is the only possible answer, because we are looking at a true statement. Okay, so without a cell membrane, you can kind of imagine things will just go anywhere they like, because a cell membrane is supposed to keep things in and out, correct things in and the wrong things out of the cell. Okay, let's go on. Next, this is about Alex, who has taken 2 cells and draw up a table. Cell A has cell wall, whereas B doesn't. Now, the first clue already kind of tell me this must be a plant, looking at just cell wall, whereas this could be an animal or plant. Okay, now let's go on to see. We can't compare this, we can't compare this, and we can't compare this because all 2 types of cells have membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm. Alright, now chloroplast, interestingly, chloroplast doesn't have any in cell A and cell B. Now, although we said cell A is a plant and there's no chloroplast in it, okay? If you could remember our previous similar questions in the past, we know that certain parts of the plants will not have chloroplast because they are not in charge of making food anyway. So roots, for example, has no. So A definitely must be a plant cell because it has a cell wall. That's for these 2 possible answers. Whereas for B, because there's no even cell wall, there's not even a chloroplast, we can safely say that it must be an animal. So the answer will be 3. Question number 10. Mrs. Rashim made a model and she took out a Ziploc bag and put some transparent jelly inside and she added a button. Okay, now she's trying to make something that feels like a cell with some jelly inside, and there's some button to represent something, and there seems to be a Ziploc bag that keeps things in. So the cell membrane, the Ziploc bag would actually feel like a cell wall, possible, like keeping the shape, or it could also be the cell membrane. Whereas the button, there's only one thing, right? In each cell, the button acts like the brain. So the button is like our nucleus. The jelly, you know, cytoplasm. If you can recall, someone in the class actually said this, the psychos eat the jelly. So that's how you can remember cytoplasm is like a jelly. So we have got Ziploc bag, there's a cell membrane. We have got buttons, there's a nucleus. And a jelly, there's a cytoplasm. The answer will be 2. Let's go on. Okay, we are open-ended finally. Okay, let's go on. Now, how can you tell which cell is a leaf and which cell is a root? Now, because there are 2 things being mentioned, and this is worth 2 marks, I would expect that your answers talks about both. Alright, to be very strict, and if you want your answers to be perfect and you can guarantee yourself a 2 marks, talk about both things. So let's start talking about cell A first. Now cell A, what do you think it is? Has to be a plant or animal? It has to be a, has to be a leaf or a root. Alright, it has to be a leaf. Why? Because there is chloroplast. Alright, remember chloroplast is the one that's in charge of making food. And who is the one who makes the food? It is the leaves, not the roots. So this must be the leaf, whereas this must be the roots. So I also got to talk about cell B because 2 parts to the question, right? Cell B will be the roots. Why? Because there is no chloroplast. So if you have answered with the keyword chloroplast, usually you will get your marks already because it shows to us that you understood that only leaves have chloroplast. But please put it in complete sentences. Okay. Name the part in cell A that is not absent, means not found in animal cell. Now, if you notice, the grammar over here talks about parts. So, in fact, this 1 mark refers to half mark plus half mark. You will need to label all the things that is not found in animal cells. For those who have only spoke about 1, you do not get any mark because in science, we have no half a mark. It's either 0 or 1 mark or 2 marks or full marks. You have got cell walls, you have got chloroplast. Okay, so that's for 2 things because of the plural form, parts. Okay, now let's go on. We have got question 12. Now, which one of these cells, again, it could be singular, it could be plural, we don't know. They are plant cells. Okay, and give a reason. Now, in fact, there's only one possible answer, X. Most of you answered this correctly. Now, some of you have given very good reasons. For example, you said because you can see cell wall. Alright, the external layer, if you can see, not the cell membrane, but they are the cell walls. Cell Y contains or has, if you want to put in a simple English, cell wall. Now, many of you are putting it in terms of the shape. Now, it is not wrong to talk about the shape, but I would prefer you, if you would like to say the shape, you would want to say something like cell Y has a rectangular shape. Okay. Now, because you want to tell the examiner that X is the only possible answer, you will want to compare your answers against the other options. So, if you say cell Y contains cell wall, I would like you to say that, but Y and Z do not. You are comparing because there are 3 things given to you. In science, anytime you are given more than one thing, you always have to do some kind of a comparison. Because in primary science, we test a lot on comparison skills. Okay, so even in your answers, has to appear some kind of a comparison words. Cell Y has a rectangular shape, but Y and Z do not. Okay, so always make a comparison when you see that there are more than one thing. Let's go on to question part B. Name 3 parts. This is quite obvious, plural again. They are present in all 3 different types of cell. Now, all of you have gotten this right, which I'm pleased. That means you know and you remember all your parts of a cell. Keep this in mind, because your exams is still about 1 month away. There is a chance where you may forget. Under examination stress, if this same question comes out, you may be able to remember cytoplasm, you may be able to remember nucleus, but because of stress, your mind can be a complete blank and you forgot what is the 3rd one. So always revise before your examination. Okay. Question 13, you have got a plant and an animal cell. Name the functions, part A and part B. Now, part A, obvious, nucleus. Part B is an animal cell. It cannot be a cell wall, so it's a cell membrane. So we're going to talk about the functions and what are the keywords I looked out for when I mark. A, nucleus. When you talk about nucleus, I always want to see the word control. What does it control? It controls activities in the cell. Many of you are using the answers from the previous questions, saying things like it stores information. These are also fine as well. Okay, but the one important word that I'll try to memorize is the word control. Let's talk about part B, cell membrane. Now, cell membrane, the keywords that I will look at is number 1, movement. Number 2, in. Number 3, out. So these 3 words in. Okay, so some of you have used the word allow. That's fine as well. So what does a cell membrane do? It control, alright, the movement. There are many of you who are still using the word things. They are not things, they are materials. And these materials can be oxygen, waste, carbon dioxide. In and out. Now, in and out of where? Is it in and out of Jurong? Is it in and out of the train? Is it in and out of the bus? Or is it in and out of the classroom? Of the cell. Alright, let's move on. Okay, we're moving fast. Which cell can carry out photosynthesis? Is it A or is it B? Again, let's make your choice. Alright, why do you say so is I explain. So let's make our correct choice first. A is the correct choice. Why is that so? Let's look at evidence. Now, from the evidence in picture, you see that in cell A, there are the presence of chloroplast. Okay, now the R, as a result of the chloroplast, what does it do? So, again the word so, it can help the plant to make food. Now in primary 6, you will be exposed to more ideas about what a chloroplast is. The chloroplast cell, you will have this green pigment called the chlorophyll, right, which is the one that's in charge of making food, okay, converting your sunlight into food, glucose. Okay, we'll talk more about this in P6. So let's talk about part B now. On the cell B in the diagram, shade the cytoplasm. Now, this question was missed out by a few in the class. Some of you have thought that this was just an instruction that you can ignore, but it's actually meant to be something that you need to do. So I should see you shading the cytoplasm, the jelly that's around it. Alright, nothing beyond the cell membrane. So this gives the 1 mark just for shading. Now in the box below, draw a diagram to show how it looks like if the cell wall is removed. Now revision, we know that the cell wall is in charge of giving the cell the shape. So imagine without the cell wall, let's look back at the picture. This shape that is quite rectangular, regular shape, is not going to stay the same. So in your drawing, if you have drawn something that looks quite a funny shape, because the shape has changed completely with the nucleus inside, alright, generally I will accept the answer. Okay, so something like that where the shape has gone weird, has gone out of shape, then I will give you as correct. Some of you would have drawn the cell the same. Alright, remember, cell wall is supposed to give it the shape as it is supposed to be seen in a worksheet like that. So if the cell wall is removed, it should not remain as the same shape like what you see in the test paper. Alright, now next, based on the diagram, state one difference. Alright, one difference will do. So some of you or most of you spotted the very obvious one, which is this external extra outline that the cell X has, that cell Y doesn't. Alright, so in fact we can say this: cell X has a cell wall, whereas cell Y does not. Again, remember, when we talk about comparison, we talk about both sides. You talk about X, you talk about X, you talk about Y. Talk about both, not just one side. Okay. Now, cell Y can be found in the lining of the small intestine. Now, we know small intestine is where digestion is completed over there. And because the food has completed digestion, that's when we want to absorb all the nutrients into the bloodstream. So what happens is that if you take a look, part P over here seems to have this tiny little things going on here. We have talked about this in class about area, if you notice. Now the area definitely is compared to cell X is bigger. So many of you were able to tell me that very important keyword, exposed surface area, which is very good. Okay, now what I need you to do is to improve on the answer further. When you are talking about two things, if you look at the diagrams, there are cell X and cell Y, we are doing a comparison again. Alright, now again, when we talk about comparison, we want to use comparison words like more. We want to use words like greater. We want to use words like taller. Alright, and so on. Alright, if you compare with two things, if you compare with three things, you want to talk about things like most. Okay, if you want to talk about greatest for three things or more, and so on, tallest. So here, since there are two things, we are going to make a comparison just between two. Alright, explain how it helps to absorb digested food more effectively. So first of all, let's talk about cell Y. That part P, what does part P actually do? Increases the exposed surface area part P increases the exposed surface area of the membrane. So what does this do? It helps to absorb more digested food effectively. Okay, now comparison word. So some of you have used words like part P increases, or the exposed area has become greater, so there's more digested food. So you notice the comparison word more. Some of you use the word greater, exposed surface area. So you notice comparison words are often used when we come to comparison questions, or when it comes to questions which has more than one diagram or more than one setup. Okay, so that concludes the end of the video. Hope you have learned at least something from this worksheet.